A couple years ago, I was back in Missouri. I'm from Missouri. I'm from the Ozarks. It's all true. Let's go with that. I had somebody go back to Missouri a bunch because my mom and sister are moving out of the house that we lived in since I was about 6 years old, and it 45 years of hoarding takes a lot. It takes a lot of time to sort that out. And so I was having to go back multiple times. And with this particular day, it was actually the last day of my trip. They were driving me to the airport. We decided to stop at a Cracker Barrel for breakfast. And I am sitting there. I'm not paying a lot of attention. I'm kind of fucking around with that little triangle game that has the T's. It's kind of like redneck thermonuclear war. Like the only way to win is not to play. And I was like messing around with that when I sort of vaguely realized that the subject of my father has come up. And my father died when I was 3 months old. My father was a long-haul trucker named Billy Joe who died on the job, and all he left me was a gun. And if you're wondering what it's like to be born into a country western song, not as much fun as you would think. When I said my father died, my father, he was a long-haul trucker, and he was driving. He was over the road, interstate driving. And one morning early he was driving east towards the rising sun, and he's on the interstate out of Missouri into Illinois, and a car swerved into his lane, and with the sun in his eyes, he couldn't see what he was doing, and he swerved to miss the car, which kind of suddenly came out of nowhere, and ran his 18-wheeler up on a guardrail and flipped the truck entirely over and was killed instantly. And that is how my father died, so far as I understood it. But now, my sister says, when the Union killed your father. And I stop messing with the little golf tee game, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? And she's like, yeah, when the Union killed Daddy. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying this like I know what you're saying, but you are wrong. Because I don't know what you're saying. And I need you to explain to me what it is you're talking about. And my sister kind of sighs like I'm being exasperating, which is kind of generally how she regards me, as mildly exasperating. She's 5 years older than I am. And she tells me this story. And the story goes like this, that after my father died, driving his truck, a guy showed up at my uncle's place and had him call my other uncles over. And my father had like 3 brothers. And the 3 brothers arrive. And he says to them that what had happened was they were trying to unionize the trucking company my father worked for. And in the 70s, the union did not have a great reputation. In the 60s and 70s, it was kind of well known the mafia had infiltrated a lot of the labor organizations, and that basically it was just you were just giving money right to organized crime. And so it was kind of a very controversial thing. But my father kind of didn't really care. His attitude towards this was he didn't want to join the union, but for his own reasons, because he actually didn't want to work with the company in the first place. What he wanted to do was he was trying to save up money to buy his own truck. And he wanted to go freelance, be independent, be his own boss. And so the reason he didn't want to join the union was just because it would somewhat delay his eventual plan of being his own man. And that was kind of it. But there was another guy. And this guy was a friend of my father's, and was much more virulently anti-union. And was very much opposed to this. And both he and my father started getting threatening phone calls. And my father kind of blew it off because he actually wasn't that committed one way or the other. But this guy was kind of taking it to task, right? And going head to head with these guys and really sort of fighting out the pro-union forces at the company. And he's telling my uncles this. And then on the day that my father died, he came to work, and this guy had the flu. He was sick. And so they gave my father this guy's route. And he got in his truck, and he started driving east Illinois, and when they went to the accident scene, there was no indication that my father had made any attempt to brake whatsoever. And according to this guy, that's because the brake lines were cut. And that they had been attempting to sabotage the truck to get at him, but my father had taken the hit because he had ducked in for him that day. And so the union murdered Billy Joe Lawrence. And my sister tells me this, but not the way I'm telling it to you. She's telling me like, you know this. And I'm like, I don't know this. And in fact, I have said my version, driving into the sun in his eyes, car swerves into the lane, goes up under the guardrail, flips the car over. I have said that in solo shows that I've toured nationally. I've been saying it on stages all over the country. Stages they've come to. They've come to and watched me say this from the stage. And now, and now I'm like, what? Like, you've seen me say this on a stage. What? And they shrug. Both of them shrug. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What's the fucking shrugging thing? And my mom's just eating French toast. Eating French toast and like, I don't know. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then it's time, like, you're gonna miss your flight. I'm like, what? What is happening? And she's right, my flight's very quick, we gotta go. And so we leave the Cracker Barrel and get into the car, and they drive me to the airport, and they hug me like, so good to see you, I can't wait till you come back again, and they drive away. And I go into St. Louis Airport, and I'm like, what? What is happening? And it's been about 2 years since this, and I am still wondering, what is happening? And the thing is, I don't have any way of sort of making any kind of sense of the notion that, like, my father was murdered. It was 53 years ago. I've lived with him being dead by an accident for so long, and I have no sort of sense of how to even process the other thing. It's like it's too late for me to become Batman, right? I'm not going to, like, start a life of fighting crime. And that's not in the cards. And there's sort of no way to find out, like, anything more about this, to launch an investigation, to kind of cope with any of that stuff. What I'm actually more curious about is why my mom and sister seem to think they told me this, that this is common knowledge, it's something I understood, but they had never actually made a point of making sure I knew this. And the best I can come up with is that my sister is 5 years older than me. And I was 3 months old when my father died. And my mom kind of started to treat my sister like a kind of partner in crime. You know? She had an infant. I was literally a baby. And I think she began to rely on my sister as a sort of, to be kind of secondary parent to me. You know? Which is kind of the role Amy's played my entire life. And I think there was sort of a sense of, we're in this together to protect Brad. We have to protect Brad because he's a baby. And you're with me, and it's you and me against the world, protecting this little one who can't protect himself. And my sister has said over and over again that I was an extremely quiet child. That I never cried, I never fussed. And it's like, of course not. Everyone was freaking out around me. I'm sure I was just like, what is happening? You know, how is this, what do you do with all of this? And all I can think is that need to protect me, that need to sort of like hide harsher things from me, when so many harsh things were happening all around me at the time, it just became a sort of de facto default position that they never checked. They never sort of like looked twice at and thought, wait, are we not passing on important information? Are there things we should be saying that we're not saying? I think they were just like, well, we've got to like protect Brad, and everything else will sort itself out. And they just never got around to telling me this story. It's the best kind of sense I can make of it. And I appreciate the desire to protect me. I appreciate the desire to sort of try to shield me from, you know, a harsh truth that was already, you know, had already impacted my life from from the age of 3 months old. But even the best intentions can go drastically awry in a way it takes 53 years to sort out. Thank you.